The first thing anyone noticed that morning was the size of the horse. He appeared out of the mist at the edge of the pasture, massive and powerful, with a coat that gleamed in the early sunlight. The ranch hands froze mid-step, tools in hand, jaws dropping as the giant draft horse made his slow, deliberate way across the fence line, snorting and shaking his heavy mane. No one had seen him before, and no one knew where he had come from. Yet there he was, a living force of muscle and calm authority, striding into the heart of the ranch like he had always belonged there. The rancher himself stepped forward cautiously, squinting against the sun as he took in the horse's sheer size. Even from a distance, it was clear this was no ordinary animal. His hooves were broad and solid, leaving deep impressions in the soft soil, and his eyes held a curious intelligence that seemed almost human. The rancher had seen many horses in his life, had raised them, trained them, and relied on them for decades, but this one was different. Something about the way he carried himself, slow yet purposeful, made the air feel charged, as if the land itself recognized his presence. The ranch hands whispered to each other, uneasy and amazed. "Where'd he come from?" one muttered, glancing at the others. "That's a horse the likes of which I've never seen. Must be some mistake. Or maybe a runaway from the far fields." Another shook his head. "Runaway or not, he doesn't look like trouble. But something about him feels off. Like he's got a purpose." The giant draft horse didn't seem bothered by their gazes or their confusion. He moved calmly, sniffing the ground, ears twitching, nostrils flaring gently, as if he were exploring and understanding this new place in his own quiet way. The rancher slowly approached, raising a hand in a gesture of cautious greeting. "Easy now," he murmured. The horse paused, tilting his massive head, and for a heartbeat the two of them simply regarded each other. The rancher felt a strange connection, a silent understanding that this animal was more than just a creature of muscle and bone. He seemed to be waiting for something, or perhaps trying to communicate, though in a way that was impossible to put into words. The rancher's heart thumped in his chest, part awe, part unease, part curiosity. The horse's sudden arrival had already stirred a ripple of excitement across the ranch. From the barn to the far pasture, workers and neighbors began to gather, each peering from doorways and fences, whispering in disbelief. "Did you see the size of him?" someone asked. "He's taller than the fence posts." Another laughed nervously. "He's like a walking mountain, and he just showed up here?" Yet even as their astonishment grew, the horse's calm demeanor kept them at bay. There was no panic, no aggression, just an immense presence that demanded respect without asking for it. The rancher called out to his men, "Let's give him space, but keep an eye on him. He might have wandered, but he could also be here for a reason." The men nodded, some still wide-eyed, some skeptical, but all aware that this was no ordinary encounter. The horse moved closer to the barn, sniffing at the old wooden doors, and then stopped abruptly, his attention captured by something unseen beyond the threshold. The rancher felt a shiver of anticipation. There was an intelligence here that went beyond instinct. He could feel it, even if he couldn't explain it. As the morning wore on, the rancher and his hands observed the giant horse, noting his habits, his strength, and the quiet way he interacted with the surroundings. He wasn't destructive. He didn't panic. He simply explored, testing boundaries, moving deliberately through the open land and watching. The rancher began to wonder if perhaps the horse was leading them somewhere, or if he carried a message of sorts, something that had yet to reveal itself. The curiosity was almost unbearable, mingling with a subtle sense of suspense, as if the horse's presence had unlocked a secret they hadn't yet discovered. By mid-morning, the buzz had spread beyond the ranch itself. Neighbors arrived on horseback or in wagons, drawn by the tail of a giant draft horse that had appeared like a legend in flesh and blood. Some were skeptical, thinking it was a trick of light or exaggeration, while others whispered of old tales, stories of horses that appeared in times of need or carried omens. Children pressed their faces against fence rails, pointing and marveling at the enormous creature, while adults debated quietly about what might have brought him here. Every glance toward the horse held the same mix of amazement and uncertainty. The rancher decided it was time to interact more directly, to understand this animal and perhaps discover the surprise he seemed to carry. He led the horse toward the main barn, speaking softly and offering a bucket of oats. The horse approached with deliberate caution, sniffing the food before taking a small bite, then pausing to look at the rancher. There was a moment of silence, the kind that feels suspended in time, where the bond between human and animal began to form. The rancher's heart pounded in his chest. Something about this encounter felt monumental, as though it were more than coincidence, more than chance. Then, without warning, the horse lifted his massive head, ears alert, and began to paw at the barn doors. The rancher stepped closer, unsure what the horse intended, and suddenly the doors creaked open as though compelled by some unseen force. Inside, the barn was empty except for shadows and the faint scent of hay. The horse nudged the rancher gently with his muzzle, and the man realized that the horse's actions were deliberate, purposeful. It was as if he was trying to show them something, to lead them to a discovery that none of them could yet imagine. A hush fell over the gathered crowd. Even the children stopped their excited chatter, sensing the importance of the moment. The giant draft horse moved inside the barn, sniffing and pawing the ground, guiding the rancher toward a far corner. There, partially hidden under old tarps and a pile of hay, was something that immediately drew gasps from the onlookers. The surprise the horse had led them to was impossible to ignore, an object or presence that seemed completely out of place, yet somehow perfectly aligned with the horse's arrival. The rancher's hands trembled slightly as he reached forward, and the horse nudged him again, patient, calm, insisting without words that he pay attention. The gathered neighbors leaned in, murmuring among themselves, a mixture of excitement, confusion, and anticipation. Whatever lay beneath the hay was about to be revealed, and the tension was thick enough to feel in the air. The giant draft horse stood beside him, a silent sentinel, as if guarding the moment and preparing everyone for the revelation. The man pulled the tarp aside, and the crowd leaned closer, holding their breath. Their eyes widened in surprise, and a collective murmur spread through the onlookers. The horse shifted slightly, as if proud of the discovery, and the rancher's mind raced to comprehend what had just been revealed. Whatever it was extraordinary, and it owed its unveiling entirely to the horse's unexpected presence and deliberate guidance. The giant draft horse, once a mysterious wanderer at the edge of the pasture, had become the center of attention for reasons far beyond his size or strength. His arrival had transformed an ordinary morning at the ranch into a moment of wonder, suspense, and awe. The crowd remained silent, eyes fixed on the barn corner, waiting for the rancher's next move, for the explanation, for the story behind the horse's strange and deliberate actions. And in that stillness, the air seemed to hold its own anticipation, as if the land itself recognized that something remarkable had occurred. The giant draft horse snorted softly, nudged the rancher again, and then stepped back, letting the humans take in the revelation. The scene was set for a story that would be told and retold, one where the ordinary world of the ranch intersected with the extraordinary, and where a single, unplanned arrival had the power to astonish everyone who witnessed it. The suspense lingered, the crowd silent, the rancher and his hands frozen in anticipation of the next moment. The horse remained calm, yet there was a knowing intelligence in his eyes, a quiet command that hinted at even more surprises yet to come. The barn, the hay, the hidden discovery, they all pointed to a story that had begun the moment the giant horse first appeared. At the edge of the pasture, the man swallowed, heart racing, and glanced at the horse, realizing that the next moments would reveal not only the secret the horse had brought with him, but also the lessons, the astonishment, and the changes that would ripple through the ranch and the community. Every eye was fixed, every sense alert, as they waited for the unveiling that would explain why a simple morning had turned into something unforgettable, all because a giant draft horse had arrived by accident. The discovery in the barn had left the ranch buzzing with whispers and unease. The neighbors had gone back home, yet their murmurs and theories lingered like a persistent wind across the fields. Some said the giant draft horse had led the rancher to hidden treasure. Others claimed it was an old piece of machinery or a forgotten relic from decades past. But the truth seemed far more mysterious than any speculation. The rancher himself couldn't stop thinking about the horse's arrival, the deliberate way it had guided him, and the almost human intelligence in its gaze. Every time he looked at the massive animal, he felt that there was more to the story, something he had yet to uncover. The horse spent the day quietly wandering the pastures, grazing near the fences but always close enough for the rancher to keep an eye on him. Its presence was both reassuring and unnerving. The ranch hands began their work, repairing fences and tending cattle, but every so often, their attention drifted to the giant horse. They were drawn to his immense strength and calm demeanor, and yet they sensed he had purpose beyond simple grazing. Children from nearby homes came to watch, their laughter filling the air, but even they seemed to hold a small, respectful distance as though they could feel the horse's quiet authority. As the sun climbed higher, the rancher decided to investigate the barn once more. The object or secret the horse had revealed demanded attention. Inside, the hay and tarps still hid the unexpected item, and he moved with deliberate care, brushing aside straw and debris. It was a chest old and sturdy with markings worn by time. His hands trembled slightly as he traced the edges, feeling a mixture of anticipation and unease. The chest itself seemed like a fragment of another era, a remnant of stories and struggles long forgotten. The rancher tried to lift the lid, but it was heavier than he expected. The horse, sensing his struggle, stepped closer, nudging the chest gently with his massive muzzle. The movement was subtle but insistent, a prompt to continue. With a grunt, the rancher forced the lid open, revealing contents carefully wrapped in cloth and leather. Inside were bundles of papers, old tools, and objects that hinted at both practical use and personal value. Letters yellowed with age, sketches of land and animals, and notes that seemed to tell a story of someone's life, hidden away but preserved with care. The rancher's mind raced. Who had left this here? Why, and how had the horse known to bring him to it? The chest was more than a collection of items. It was a message, a fragment of history preserved in the shadows of the barn, waiting for the right person to uncover it. As he sifted through the contents, the horse remained calm but attentive, ears flicking toward each sound and movement. There was an almost protective aura about him, as if he understood the importance of what had been found and was committed to ensuring it remained intact. Outside, one of the ranch hands called out, breaking the silence. "You've got to see this, boss!" The rancher stepped back from the chest, curious and wary, following the hand to the fence line. There, in the open field, a young foal had appeared, stumbling slightly as it ran alongside the giant draft horse. It wasn't clear where the foal had come from, but it seemed to recognize the horse immediately, following its massive form with an almost instinctive trust. The crowd that had gathered earlier began to murmur again, all mixed with curiosity. The horse had brought more than one surprise that day, and the connection between the two animals hinted at something deeper, something meaningful beyond mere coincidence. The rancher knelt near the foal, watching it struggle to keep pace. The giant horse stood still, head lowered, watching the interaction with a patient, almost knowing gaze. The foal moved closer to the chest, nudging at the bundles of cloth as if sensing their significance. The rancher felt a chill of recognition, as though the horse had orchestrated this encounter to convey a message of guidance and care. Each movement, each gesture seemed deliberate, as if the animals were partners in a plan that had yet to be fully revealed. Later that afternoon, the rancher gathered his men around the barn, the chest now partially emptied of its contents. He spread the papers across the hay-strewn floor, showing sketches of land plots, notes on livestock, and observations about the seasons. The handwriting was elegant but old-fashioned, filled with meticulous detail that suggested pride and a deep connection to the land. The horse remained close, ears flicking toward the sounds of discussion, standing as a silent sentinel. The men exchanged glances, realization dawning that the horse had led them to a historical puzzle, a story that had waited decades to be uncovered. One of the ranch hands spoke up, voice low and uncertain. "Boss, do you think this chest belonged to someone who lived here long ago? Could the horse have known somehow?" The rancher nodded slowly, still absorbed in the contents. "I don't know how he knew, but there's no mistake in this. He brought us here for a reason. Everything in this chest tells a story. We need to understand it, piece by piece. The horse shifted slightly, pressing closer to the chest, as if affirming the importance of the moment. As the sun began to dip, shadows stretching across the fields, the rancher and his team worked to decipher the sketches and notes. They revealed a life of labor, care for the land, and understanding of the animals that once roamed these pastures. There were maps indicating hidden water sources, fences long forgotten, and pastures that had been rotated for decades according to an almost instinctive understanding of the land. Every piece of paper added to the sense of awe and suspense. The horse's arrival now seemed even more extraordinary, as if he had appeared not by accident but as a guide to uncover a legacy nearly lost to time. The foal stayed close to the giant horse, following every movement, ears twitching, hooves stepping lightly over the uneven ground. There was a sense of bond, not only between the animals but between the animals and the humans who had come to witness their actions. Each revelation from the chest deepened the mystery. Letters hinted at previous owners who had vanished, stories of livestock and hardship, and notes that hinted at hidden dangers or unresolved conflicts. The rancher's mind raced with possibilities, questions mounting as the day waned and shadows lengthened. By evening, the barn was filled with a mix of anticipation and reverent silence. The papers had been sorted, and the chest had revealed more than just tools and letters. It had revealed connections to the land, the animals, and the people who had come before. The giant horse, still calm and steady, seemed to survey the scene, aware of the growing realization among the humans. The foal nickered softly, leaning against its massive companion, reinforcing the sense that these animals had orchestrated something far larger than themselves. The rancher paused, running his hands over the aged papers and the chest itself. "There's more here," he said, almost to himself. "Something that explains why this horse appeared, why he brought the foal, and why all of this was hidden for so long." "I can feel it." The men exchanged uneasy glances. They had come expecting a simple mystery, a strange horse at the gate, and instead they had found a story intertwined with the land, the animals, and possibly something greater that had yet to reveal itself. Night began to fall, and the ranch settled into a quiet that felt almost sacred. The giant draft horse grazed near the barn, head lowered, still watchful. The foal stayed close, resting after the day's excitement. The rancher leaned against the barn post, the chest and its contents nearby, and felt a profound sense of connection, not only to the animals but to the history that had been uncovered. Every movement of the horse, every nudge and gesture seemed purposeful, guiding them toward understanding and discovery. And yet, even as the stars began to appear in the sky above the pastures, questions lingered. Who had left the chest? Why had it been hidden so carefully? And why had the giant draft horse appeared at exactly this moment, as if called by something only he could sense? The suspense remained thick in the air, a quiet hum of anticipation that promised the story was far from over. The rancher looked at the horse, standing calm and steady in the moonlight, and realized that the true surprise had yet to be revealed. The chest, the foal, and the horse were pieces of a larger puzzle, one that would demand courage, patience, and trust to fully understand. He felt a shiver of anticipation, a mixture of awe and curiosity, knowing that the next discovery could change everything about the ranch, the land, and their understanding of the past. And so, the night closed in, quiet but charged with expectation. The giant draft horse, the foal, and the humans stood together, connected by the unfolding mystery, waiting for the next moment when the secrets of the chest and the purpose of the horse's arrival would come to light. The story was far from over, and the ranch would never be the same again. The following morning, the mist hung low over the pastures again, curling around fence posts and grazing cattle like a ghostly curtain. The rancher couldn't shake the feeling that yesterday's events had shifted something in the air, something he couldn't name. The giant draft horse had spent the night close to the barn, standing guard over the chest and the foal, and now he moved with the same deliberate calm that had first drawn everyone's attention. The rancher's hands were busy tending the animals, but his eyes constantly drifted toward the massive figure, searching for some clue, some sign of what the horse might do next. The foal followed its companion eagerly, yet there was an uneasiness in its steps, a subtle tension that mirrored the human's own uncertainty. The chest in the barn remained half open, papers and tools carefully arranged on the hay, but it offered no immediate answers. Each day seemed to add more questions than solutions. What had been hidden here? Why now? And most importantly, why had the giant horse chosen this ranch to appear at this particular time? By mid-morning, word had spread once again to nearby neighbors. A few cautious visitors arrived, bringing with them speculation and unease. Some whispered that the chest might contain something dangerous, that the papers and objects were more than they seemed. Others, more superstitious, suggested the horse itself was a sign and omen or a guide from beyond. Children gathered at a safe distance, pointing excitedly at the towering figure of the draft horse and the tiny foal, while adults exchanged worried glances, torn between curiosity and caution. The rancher, sensing the rising tension, decided it was time to explore the surrounding land, guided by the horse. He had noticed the animal's pattern. It seemed to be leading him toward certain points around the property, pausing deliberately near old trees, stone piles, and hidden hollows. Each stop was brief but purposeful, as if the horse were communicating something wordlessly. The rancher moved carefully, following the massive creature across fields that had long been neglected, noting the animal's uncanny awareness of hidden hollows and overgrown paths. As they moved deeper into the northern pastures, the foal occasionally stumbled, its legs still unsure on uneven ground, but the horse never left its side. The rancher began to realize that the horse's intelligence and guidance were extraordinary. It was as if the animal could read the land and its history in a way no human could. Old fence lines, forgotten water troughs, and hidden stone markers seemed to hold meaning, and the horse paused at each one, nudging the rancher gently as though urging him to notice, to understand. The sun climbed higher, but a tension lingered in the air, thick and almost tangible. Every movement across the fields seemed significant. Every glance toward the horizon carried a sense of anticipation. The chest in the barn, the horse, the foal, all of it suggested that there was something buried, hidden, or lost on this land that needed to be found. The rancher's heart raced with both excitement and apprehension, knowing that the next discovery could change everything. Midday brought an unexpected challenge. As the group approached an old grove near the far edge of the property, a sudden snapping sound echoed from the underbrush. The horse froze instantly, ears pinned forward, muscles tense and ready. The foal backed up slightly, whinnying in alarm. The rancher strained to see what had caused the noise, but the grove was thick with shadows and tangled branches. His hand went instinctively to the tool belt at his waist, but he realized instinctively that violence might not be necessary. Something about the horse's posture suggested control, authority, and patience rather than aggression. From the shadows emerged a figure, tall and wary, moving carefully through the trees. The rancher's breath caught. This person seemed to know the land, moving with a quiet confidence and a certain unease, as if they had been tracking something or someone. The horse stepped forward slightly, not aggressively, but with the kind of presence that made it clear the land and its secrets were under its watchful eye. The foal stayed close, whinnying softly. The rancher's mind raced. Was this figure an intruder? A neighbor? Or someone tied to the chest, to the papers, to the history that had suddenly resurfaced? The figure stopped a few paces away, hands raised in a gesture of peace. "I didn't mean to startle anyone," they said, voice low but steady. "I was just checking the property. I heard about the horse and—" Their words trailed off, uncertainty and caution in every syllable. The rancher studied the person, noting their posture, their eyes, and the way they avoided looking directly at the giant draft horse. Something in their demeanor suggested knowledge, perhaps even a connection to the land's hidden secrets. The horse lowered its massive head, nostrils flaring, sniffing the air between them. Its movements were deliberate, patient, yet there was an intensity in its gaze that made even the rancher feel the weight of its awareness. The foal shifted nervously but remained close, clearly attuned to the horse's signals. The rancher realized that whatever had been hidden, whatever had been discovered in the chest, and whatever purpose had brought the horse here was far from fully revealed. There were layers of history, mystery, and danger he could sense but not yet define. For the next hour, tension lingered as the three humans rancher, ranch hand, and the newcomer worked cautiously around the grove, trying to understand the horse's behavior. The animal moved with precision, pausing at certain stones, nudging the foal toward specific clearings, and returning repeatedly to the edges of the grove as if confirming something. The rancher's mind spun with possibilities. The horse had not arrived by accident. Its presence, combined with the foal and the chest, hinted at a deeper story, a secret that had waited decades to resurface. As the afternoon shadows lengthened, a sudden shift occurred. The horse's ears twitched sharply, and it began to paw at the ground near a dense thicket. The foal mirrored the movement, stamping its small hooves. The rancher knelt down, brushing aside leaves and brush carefully, and felt the first tangible sign that something had been buried here. The soil was slightly disturbed, and there was the faint outline of a shallow cavity beneath the thicket. His pulse quickened. Whatever lay beneath was significant. The horse had led them to the edge of the next revelation. The newcomer stepped closer, eyes wide, their hands trembling slightly. I think this is what we've been looking for," they whispered. The rancher nodded, carefully brushing the earth aside, revealing a wooden box, smaller than the chest, but equally weathered. Its edges were splintered, and the faint smell of aged leather and earth rose from it. The horse stood beside them, still calm but alert, as though ensuring that no misstep would interrupt the discovery. Every movement carried meaning. Every glance from the giant animal reinforced that they were on the precipice of something important. The rancher and the newcomer exchanged glances, tension and anticipation hanging thick in the air. They could sense the significance of what had been unearthed, but there was also a silent warning. They were only beginning to understand the story. The foal whinnied softly, leaning against its companion as if offering reassurance. The giant draft horse lowered his head, nostrils brushing the surface of the box, eyes locked on the humans as though signaling patience and care. Every sound seemed amplified, the rustle of leaves, the creak of branches, the soft breathing of the animals. The chest in the barn, the papers, the foal, and now this box created a web of mystery and suspense that enveloped the ranch. Each clue pointed to a story of resilience, guidance, and purpose, but none offered immediate answers. The tension was almost unbearable, a quiet, simmering energy that promised the next moment would reveal far more than anyone expected. The sun dipped closer to the horizon, casting long shadows across the grove, and the rancher paused, hand resting on the box. His mind raced with questions. Who had hidden it here? Why? And why had the horse appeared at this precise moment, guiding them through decades of forgotten history? The anticipation coiled tighter with every passing second, each one stretching longer than the last. The climax of their discovery was near, yet still out of reach, building suspense to a nearly unbearable degree. The giant draft horse shifted slightly, ears flicking toward the distant horizon, as if sensing something beyond the grove. The foal stamped nervously, mirroring the horse's focus. The rancher's pulse hammered in his chest. They had uncovered part of the mystery, but the final pieces, the ones that would explain everything, the chest, the horse's arrival, the foal, and now the buried box, were still waiting to be revealed. The air vibrated with the promise of answers, with the energy of a story on the verge of completion, but one that demanded patience, attention, and respect for the forces both human and animal that had orchestrated it. As darkness began to creep into the grove, the rancher and the newcomer prepared to return to the barn with the box, moving slowly, aware that the night could bring new challenges, new revelations, or unexpected danger. The horse followed, massive hooves pressing into the softened earth, full close at his side. The tension remained, thick as the night air, and the sense of approaching climax hung over the ranch like a storm cloud ready to burst. The story was poised on the edge of revelation. Every paper, every chest, every nudge of the horse's massive muzzle had brought them to this point. The final surprise, the truth behind the horse's appearance and the hidden treasures of the land, waited just beyond reach. Every heartbeat, every shadow, every sound of the night seemed to whisper that the climax was near, that the answers were coming, and that the ranch and everyone on it would never be the same again. The night had settled fully over the ranch, the stars glittering coldly above. When the rancher finally returned to the barn with the small, weathered box cradled carefully in his arms, the giant draft horse followed at a steady pace, the foal skimming close to his side, the soft sound of their hooves punctuating the stillness. Inside the barn, a lantern cast a warm glow across the hay-strewn floor, revealing the chest, the papers, and now this final piece. The rancher set the box down gently, feeling a mixture of exhaustion and anticipation. Every sense felt heightened, as if the land itself held its breath alongside them. The newcomer helped arrange the contents for easier inspection. The box opened to reveal old journals, small leather pouches, and items that seemed trivial at first: buttons, rings, and scraps of cloth, but they all carried weight when examined closely. The journals were filled with careful handwriting, notes on the land, weather patterns, animal behavior, and daily hardships. Each page painted a picture of lives that had once thrived here, people who had loved and worked the ranch, and challenges they had faced quietly with perseverance. The chest and box together told a story of endurance, foresight, and legacy that had been hidden deliberately, waiting for someone to uncover it. The giant draft horse stood quietly, eyes following every movement, as if understanding the significance of each discovery. The foal nuzzled at the horse's massive side, whickering softly, and for a moment, the tension of the past days seemed to dissolve, replaced by a quiet reverence. The rancher ran his hands over the journals, feeling a connection not only to the people who had lived here long ago, but to the land itself. It was as though the horse had brought him here not by accident, but to ensure the continuation of a legacy that could have been lost forever. Hours passed as the rancher and the newcomer pored over every paper and item, uncovering details of old fence lines, watering points, and pastures that had been rotated with care. Maps revealed hidden springs, grazing patterns, and hints at how to manage the land sustainably, knowledge that had been almost forgotten. The horse seemed to recognize every detail, walking slowly among the papers, nudging the foal toward items of particular interest, guiding without words. The connection between human and animal was extraordinary, an unspoken partnership in uncovering history and ensuring the ranch's future. By midnight, a sense of resolution had begun to form, though questions still lingered. The chest and box had revealed the lives of those who had worked the ranch before, the care they had given to the animals, and the wisdom they had accumulated. But the presence of the horse, the foal, and the deliberate guidance to the discoveries suggested a greater purpose. The rancher finally realized that the horse had been more than a passive guide. It had orchestrated a journey of revelation, ensuring that the land and its secrets would be understood and respected. The next morning brought a clarity that had been missing. The rancher and his men worked together to restore parts of the ranch, guided by the old maps and notes. Fences were repaired according to the precise rotations outlined in the journals. Water sources, long neglected, were uncovered and cleaned. Pastures were tended with careful consideration. It became clear that the horse had brought more than physical treasures. It had brought knowledge, insight, and the means to revive the ranch in a way that honored the past while building for the future. Neighbors who had gathered the day before returned, this time drawn by curiosity and admiration rather than skepticism. They watched as the giant draft horse moved confidently across the fields, guiding the foal, helping the rancher's team manage the livestock, and standing calmly as the humans worked. Word spread quickly of the horse's intelligence and the remarkable discoveries it had led them to. People came not just to see the animals, but to witness the restoration of a ranch that had seemed forgotten, now alive again with history, care, and purpose. The foal grew stronger with each day, its bond with the giant draft horse deepening. Together, they became a symbol of continuity, resilience, and connection between humans and animals. The rancher felt a profound sense of gratitude. The animals had not only led him to a deeper understanding of the land, but had also reminded him of the importance of patience, observation, and respect. The journals, maps, and items from the chest and box had provided guidance, but it was the animals' quiet wisdom that had transformed discovery into action. As weeks passed, the ranch thrived. Cattle and horses moved efficiently across pastures, fences held steady, and the springs flowed clean and strong. The lessons hidden in the old documents, once a mystery, were now a living reality, applied with care and precision. The rancher often paused in the evening to watch the giant horse and the foal, noting the intelligence in their eyes and the calm assurance of their movements. He realized that the story was not just about discovery but about stewardship, about taking responsibility for the land, the animals, and the history that shaped them. The community began to change too. Neighbors visited to learn from the rancher, to see the horses, and to hear the story of the chest, the journals, and the guidance of the mysterious horse. Children listened with wide eyes, inspired not just by the animal's size or strength, but by their patience and deliberate actions. Adults shared stories of their own families' histories, recalling old methods of ranching, survival, and care for the land. What had started as a day of mystery and suspense evolved into a collective appreciation for knowledge, heritage, and collaboration. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and painted the pastures in warm golden light, the rancher stood quietly near the barn. The giant draft horse grazed nearby, while the foal played lightly around his companion's legs. The chest and box, now carefully restored and displayed, held a place of honor inside the barn, representing not just the past but a guide for the future. The rancher felt a quiet satisfaction, knowing that the animals had led him to something far greater than he could have imagined. Their arrival had been unexpected, their actions deliberate, and their presence transformative. In the weeks that followed, the rancher continued to apply the knowledge from the journals, restoring old practices and adapting them to modern needs. Each decision was informed by the lessons of the past, yet guided by the insight of the animals. The giant horse's calm presence remained a constant reminder that discovery and wisdom often come in unexpected forms. The foal, growing stronger each day, became a partner in the work, a living link between past and present. Together, the animals had helped the humans uncover not only forgotten treasures, but the true value of patience, observation, and respect for all living beings. The story of the giant draft horse and the foal spread beyond the immediate area, inspiring those who heard it to pay closer attention to the animals, the land, and the hidden wisdom that often goes unnoticed. Visitors came to see the ranch, to witness the animals in action, and to learn about the discoveries that had transformed a forgotten piece of land into a thriving, living testament to care, knowledge, and collaboration. The rancher welcomed them, eager to share not just the story, but the lessons embedded in every pasture, fence, and animal movement. As time passed, the rancher realized that the journey had changed him as much as it had transformed the land. He had learned to trust instincts, to observe closely, and to value guidance that came in forms he might not have anticipated. The chest and box, once mysterious and hidden, had become symbols of the enduring importance of history, preparation, and connection. And through it all, the giant draft horse and the foal remained steadfast companions, silent guides, and living reminders that the smallest acts and the quietest gestures often hold the greatest power. On a cool evening, the rancher walked across the pasture, the wind rustling softly through the tall grass. The giant horse and foal moved beside him, their presence steady and reassuring. He paused at the edge of a small grove, thinking back to the moment they had first appeared, and felt a profound sense of gratitude. The land was alive again, the animals were thriving, and the lessons of the past were now a part of the present. The story, once filled with mystery and suspense, had found its resolution in the quiet, deliberate actions of the creatures who had guided him and in the wisdom preserved across generations. The rancher smiled, watching the sun dip low, casting long, golden shadows over the fields. The giant draft horse lowered its head to graze, the foal nuzzled close, and for the first time in many weeks, the rancher felt a sense of complete peace. Every question had been answered, every thread of the mystery accounted for. And yet the land, the animals, and the story continued to grow, live, and inspire. The past and present had converged in a way that honored both, and the lessons learned would not be forgotten. The ranch would continue, strong and thriving, a living testament to patience, guidance, and connection. The giant draft horse and foal remained at the heart of it all, reminders that even the most unexpected visitors could carry wisdom, purpose, and the power to change lives. And as the night settled over the fields, calm and still. The rancher felt a deep understanding. Some stories are revealed not in words, but in actions, in quiet guidance, and in the steadfast presence of those who choose to lead without speaking, teaching without commanding, and caring without expectation. In the end, the ranch was no longer just land, it was a story, a living legacy, and a place where history, animals, and humans had come together to create something remarkable. And the giant draft horse, with the foal at his side, would forever remain a symbol of the magic, mystery, and guidance that could appear when least expected but was most needed. The rancher took one last look at them, feeling the depth of what had unfolded, knowing that their arrival had changed everything, and that the lessons they carried would endure for generations to come.